Hey guys, it's Nemo, and welcome to the fourth and final Royal Navy destroyer that is obtainable at the present time with the Royal Navy event, the HMS Lightning. And let's just say that this destroyer is head and shoulders above the other three destroyers that you can get at the present time. The Lightning is faster. It has 6 guns with a 360-degree rotational rear turret, which is brilliant because it allows your rear turret to be facing wherever your other turrets are facing at all times instead of having to turn 360 degrees or 180 degrees around the back of the ship. The firing angles aren't too bad, although it's nowhere near as good as the Gadjamata, so you do give a bit of broadside when you do try to get all 6 guns firing. You have a 5.5 kilometer detection with concealment expert on your captain and with the concealment module that you can obtain now that you're in tier 8. Downsides of this ship, well, you've got 120mm guns, which means that you can only penetrate 19mm of armor with your high explosive. Now, you're going to face a lot of tier 10 destroyers who do have 19mm of armor, but if you have a look at the gearing, for example, and we can have a look at that a bit later, it has 21mm of armor on her side. So definitely using AP there. So I come in here with the Kiev. I use this detection to get out of range, and the Kiev smokes up here. Now he was spotted, and again, like I've shown you in all these videos, I don't want to fire because you don't want to attract attention from everybody else. So I launched the torps to the rear of the smoke, and the reason is I'm expecting him to reverse in the smoke. I'm not expecting him to go forward. He hasn't got the best detection, so the last thing he wants to do is get spotted running out of the smoke into the cap somewhere else. My hydro, which is 3 kilometers for ship detection anyway, I think it's 3 kilometers as well on the torpedoes, picks up the torpedoes pretty well, and I do manage to score a hit there on the Kiev. Now you see this fire coming in here, shots come in. So one of my cruisers, I believe it was the Henri, now he was a good player, he has a shot at where the torpedo hits. Differences between Unicum players and the rest of us. But anyway, I went back into the cap. Now I don't usually go back into the cap because the last thing you want to do when you torpedo a smoke screen is scare the enemy away. Because as soon as you go back in, it makes them uncomfortable. A lot of times if someone comes back into the cap, I will usually leave, so then they feel comfortable about sitting around the cap, and then you can just go back in and get them. So my hydro here keeps the Kiev lit up, and my Worcester comes and finishes them off. Now I'm free to capture this point without the enemy destroyer getting in my way. So back to some of the weaknesses of the Lightning. You do lose 2 torpedoes. You only have 8, whereas your previous destroyers, Acasta, Icarus and Jarvis, all have 10. Now if this had 8, it would be great. The 120mm guns, they are rapid firing, although I believe even with BFT I have 4 seconds on the guns, so when you do end up facing tier 10s, because you will always face tier 10s in a tier 8 ship, that's just how it is, you're going to be outgunned. The gearing and the Yu-Yang, I think the Yu-Yang 2.4 seconds on my Yu-Yang, which is a lot of fire to handle, and then of course you've got Haragumos and all that, so you need to really utilize this 5.5 kilometer detection, especially when you're playing bottom tier, which is what you'll play a lot. So I tell the team I'm going to go over towards the A cap, but I decide, you know what, I'm just going to hang around and defend my own cap here. So pretty much most of the battle is just defending this cap, and you can do that with this concealment. Now if you don't run the concealment expert on your captain, you can still have with the concealment module and your camouflage, you can get this to 6.1 kilometer detection, which is still pretty competitive. You do have these rapid smokes that you can deploy very quickly. That would be an extra 4 points that you can use for other perks, bonuses or weapons, whatever you want for your destroyer. But in my opinion, playing in tier 10 9 times out of 10, the 5.5 kilometer detection is something you really need, especially that you can gunfight, but you're not going to win one-on-one gunfights with tier 10 destroyers. Unfortunately, you're not even going to win one-on-one gunfights with tier 8 destroyers. I mean, if you come up against an Akazuki, or anything comes up against an Akazuki, you are going to be absolutely deleted. Other ships that you do face, you know, Changmu, even the Shimakaze can give you some trouble. So I launched my torps. Now they're not the best launch torps because the Yamato was moving. He goes after, unfortunately I don't get a flooding here, but he's going after my Worcester now. As a Yamato, that is or any ship, that is a very good target to hit. You prioritise destroyers and then you prioritise radar cruisers. So I switched to AP, try and get some superstructure damage on the Yami, and then I decided, well, I better get out of my smoke to go and try and help. So see, like that was a pretty good shot there. That AP salvo of 6 shells did what, 4,500 damage through the superstructure of the Yamato. So it doesn't have the AP penetration that the Jutland and the Daring look like they're going to have. You know, they're still in testing, and that's why they're not released. That's why these 4 are released, because they have finished testing with these. So unfortunately our Worcester goes down, but so does the Yamato, which is good. You can still gunfight things, and then anyone can bounce. You would have heard the bounce sound there. I bounced a Minotaur shell. Unfortunately for the Minotaur, if you do angle correctly in a destroyer, you will bounce her all the time. But if you can avoid taking gunfights, and I derp here in the Maha Republic, but I think it was a good thing. It sort of saved me a little, and it kept me at the back there where I could spot the torpedoes for him. So it worked out. Sometimes derping is not a bad thing, but that also tells me that there is under destroyer, and that's a 5x5, although there's only 3 there at the second lot, that it has to be the gearing, because the 5x5 spread has obviously taken an island. So there's 2 down there. Now those torpedoes there's 4, so there's 2 sets of 4. That's definitely the Minotaur torpedoes. So we see the little angry smoke screen here, which has sort of gone quiet, so I torp into it. If you can torp smoke screens as much as you can, go for it. And then there's the gearing, and now this is where the power of this detection comes into play. The gearing has a 5.9 detection, the Lightning has a 5.5 detection. So what I want to do is use my 5.5 detection to get the gearing out of the game. Not by me getting him out of the game, by keeping him spotted. Now, you could do this with the Yu Yang. The Yu Yang has a 5.8 kilometer detection. Any ship that has a, well, in fact, this has a better detection than any ship of these high tiers. 5.6 is the Shimakaze, so you've got 100 meters that you can use to spot the Shima, which is very, very close. It's pushing it. And so I just keep him spotted here. I call him out for guys to target him, and usually at the high tier they're going to target the destroyer, because destroyers, good destroyer players win games. So all I want to do is just keep him spotted, and I'm definitely not going to try and pick a gunfight with him now, and I can see a Zhao as well. And then the Minotaur pops up, so it's 3-on-1 at the moment, and I'm in a relatively dangerous position, but I know that my detection is superior to all of theirs, so I'm just going to use that to keep him spotted. Now I do open fire, because I thought, oh, he's only got 1200 health left, so if I can get him out of here, then that'll be good for my team. And then he gets down to 400, and I missed the shots, which is unfortunate. But I've done my job as well. I've pushed him away from the cap. I've pushed him away from my other ships, because you don't want to destroy anywhere near your capital ships. And then again, torpedoes. So those torpedoes I know came from the Minotaur, so I'm not too worried about them. I will have my hydro back up in 40 seconds, and then I'll be using that. So, but the detection is what I'm going to be using to make sure that my cap stays protected and defended. So we lost our Shimakaza very early in the game. In fact, it was only a couple of minutes in. He just rolled into the A cap and was destroyed. And it happens. Sometimes you just have times where you do silly things, or where you don't get to play off properly. So Minotaur gets wounded here, but as you can see, he's starting to print a new ship, or at least half a ship. I did open fire to try and get him and set him on fire while he is healing. Probably not the best idea, as there is a Zhao as well, and I don't know where the gearing has gone. So I face the Minnow bow on, try and bounce his shells, and as you can see I'm bouncing a handful of his shells, and I smoke up so I can try and get out of there. I know that he's not a radar Minnow because he's got his smoke there. So he fires off some blind shots and they go all the way over the top of me, so I thought, oh, I'm not going to reverse, I'm just going to go forward then. And while he's sitting in there, I'll put some smoke, some blind fire in, and that was a very good blind shot from the Zhao, and it actually made me a little bit salty while I was playing this game. I was like, whatever. Good shot though, like really good blind fire. He anticipated the fact that I might be coming out. Once he saw I'd say that once he saw that the cap stop ticking over, he knew that there was only one spot I could be if I was coming out of the smoke, and that was right there on the edge of the cap. So really good play there from the Zhao. Going back into the cap, I've forced the Minotaur out, which is great, but still I don't know where this gearing is. Now the rest of my team, we have a ship's advantage, but we've only just got a points advantage now, but all the points are stopping for the enemy team because we are contesting or have capped all of the caps now. So I just reverse. I just want to find out, get some information on where the gearing is, and then I see the torps here. So there's one set or two sets of torps coming from the Minotaur. They're the ones coming across directly at me, and then the ones coming up from behind me from my stern, they're definitely the gearing ones. So the hydro here really helps with torpedo fighting. It doesn't matter that you don't have the speed boost with this ship. This is not a slow ship, and have a look at the acceleration here. Very quick to go from 0 knots up to 35, 36 knots. Very quick, which is really handy, especially when you need to get away or dodge torpedoes. Now fortunately for me, there wasn't much radar in this match, so when you are playing against radar, keep that in mind, that you will need to hang around the edge of your cap while you're capping, because you don't have the speed boost to help you get away. So my hydro spots the Zhao torps miles away, which is great, and I am located, so I'm not sure who that was. I thought it was either the minnow or the gearing. Most destroyers will play the RPF, I also play it on my Minotaur, but I played Radar Minotaur, so I use it as a destroyer hunter, so that's why I run the RPF or RL these days, radio location, on my Minotaur. So we go down again. Now it's time to attack. I can use my concealment, which is 5.5, and now that I have good torpedoes, 8-kilometer torpedoes, even though I've lost one in each tube, so I've lost, instead of 10s I've got 8 now. You can attack with these torpedoes. You can lead your target. They're 61 knots, they're not too slow, they're not the fastest, but they're not slow. And you can start pushing forward and being effective for your team. You don't have to just be a defensive destroyer like you do with the three others, the Acasta, the Icarus and the Jarvis. You've got to play that really defensive style. So I thought, oh, well, it's the end of the battle, 962 points, I'm going to start opening up on the Minotaur. And I spot the gearing torpedo, so I know where he is, I know he's not too far away. Now I switch to AP here because AP will get good shots on the side, but my HE finished him off anyway, so it wasn't too bad. So let's have a look how we did. And that's right, I remember that. For some reason the post-game stats don't pop up to start with, so it just goes back to the port here. This happens to me a lot in my game, where it goes back to port and I've got to check the post-game stats later, but that's alright. So what we can do is we can talk about some things that are good or bad with the Lightning. So what you want to do is use that concealment. I recommend the concealment build, and here we go, here's the post-battle results. So only 51,000 damage. None of my battles, as I said, have been too high on the damage. We're not looking to do damage, we're looking to defend and get caps. So 4th in a tier 8, tier 9 game, not too bad. Alright, I've just jumped back into the port because we want to have a look at the modules and the captain build, or the captain skills for this ship. This is, it's a nice looking ship, isn't it? I mean, the turret's a little bit ATSD, but we can get over that. It's a good ship. Finishing 4th in a tier 10 game with a tier 8 ship is really good. It's really bad though when the tier 8 ship is the one carrying the tier 10s. Anyway, let's have a look at Oliver Brown here, our captain, and check out his skills. I've been using the same captain for all of my destroyers, the Acasta, the Icarus, the Jarvis, and now the Lightning. I would like this captain to be my daring captain. And it's a good thing that I haven't got 19 points, because I will decide on how to best kit him out later on. So he's got 5 points left. There's probably some good skills here that we could use. If I was keep him at tier 8, I'd use Inertia Fuse High Explosive for that extra penetration on the shells. But let's go through what we've got. Priority target, because we want to know how many people are targeting us, why, so then we know whether we can openly gunfight other destroyers or cruisers, or whether there's too many in the area and we need to smoke up and just go dark. We have the last stand skill, which should be built into destroyers, I think. Maybe that's something Wargaming can do, is just make it that the destroyer has that automatically, because it's an absolute requirement on destroyers. You need that skill, otherwise you're just going to put yourself at a massive disadvantage and probably get wiped off the game early on, because once your engine goes out, that's it, you're sitting duck. With the last stand skill, you can still at least move and get out of the way. BFT, so the basic firing training, allows my guns to reload quicker, and in a straight up gunfight with other destroyers, that is extremely handy. And then the concealment expert. Now, as I said earlier in the video, you don't need to run concealment expert on this ship, because without it, it still has a 6.1 detection with the module and your camouflage. But my recommendation would be to run the Concealment Expert, because you cannot properly gunfight tier 10 destroyers who you will face 9 times out of 10. So things like the Gearing, the Yu Yang, the Haragumo, the Grozvoy, even the Shimakaze. I mean, the Shimakaze can't hit you as fast, but it can still hit you quite hard. So you need to, for me, I would run the Concealment Expert. I'm also running the Survivability Expert, just to give me that extra health, so if I do get into a straight up gunfight, or a gunfight, whatever, I can tank a little bit more damage. And it's probably a good idea to have it as well, because battleship AP somehow detonates in your ship. I mean, if you're north-south, fair enough, it's going to punch through a number of bulkheads, but when you're side on, as I say, if you see a battleship and you're open in the open and you are spotted, cross his T's, turn side on, so he's got to punch through your side, because it's more likely to over-penetrate. Now, other skills that I would run on these destroyers, well, you've already got the Hydro, so you probably don't need the Vigilance, but Vigilance could work. I would probably run the Superintendent if I had enough points to do it. I'd probably run the Radiolocation skill, because it's a very, very good skill to have, especially when you know how to use it properly. It's also one that gives you a lot of information. As I said, if I was to keep him at tier 8 captain, I might run the Inertia Fuse High Explosive. There's a lot of good skills here. Jack of all trades is a good skill for a destroyer, and preventive maintenance for a destroyer is good as well, because it'll stop your guns being destroyed as often. So that's just the basic 14 points that I'm using at the moment, or 13 points I've used. Would I run AR on a destroyer? I've actually stopped running AR on my destroyers, and the reason is that there are other skills here that you can get for your torpedoes, for example, that will boost the reload time of your torpedoes. You can run the BFT skill, which then gives you a universal buff to your guns. It doesn't require you to take damage. So, and on destroyers, you do fire quick enough, especially when you get into the higher tiers. You fire fast enough that you don't need the AR, and you're not really going to see, on some destroyers, you're not really going to see much of a buff with the AR. So you could probably save yourself 2 points there and take one of the other skills. Anyway, let's have a look at the modules for this ship and what I use. Incredibly, I'm not using Lightning B or the gunfire mod. Maybe I should mount those. That might make a bit of a difference. Well, it's definitely made a little bit of difference in the health there. Concealment's still the same. Survivability, we now have 18,000 hit points. Can't believe I wasn't running those. Wow. Anyway, premium consumables. You should always run premium consumables. You're going to make enough money, especially playing at tier 8 in tier 10 games. If you do well enough, even if you get the 50,000 damage and that's all you get, or less, but you get caps and defenders, you're going to make more than enough money to keep replenishing your premium consumables. So the upgrades, I've actually decided to go with the magazine modification 1 on this ship. That means that I'm not going to have to run as many detonation flags. Yes, the flags do negative 100%, so you can't get detonated. The magazine module does negative 70, so you may, but unlikely that you'll get detonated. If you don't run that, the other one I would run would be the main armaments mod, which you pretty much run on everything, because it keeps your main battery repair time, torpedo tubes. It increases the survivability. The second consumable is always propulsion mod 1, because as I said, if your engine goes out, and your engine is likely to go out playing a destroyer a lot, you need to have this to try to not lose it as much, and then that coupled with the last stand skill allows you to have a better engine survivability. Now I've decided to run the smoke screen, the smoke generator on this. It does give me an extra puff, or maybe an extra 2 puffs, so instead of having 2 puffs of my smoke, I will get 4 puffs of my smoke. Now I know that it does take off 5% of my time, so I only get about 30 seconds, maybe 35 seconds to sit in the smoke instead of 40 seconds, or whatever it is. They're very short duration smokes, so it doesn't really matter anyway. These are just get out of dodge smokes. That's what they're there for. If I wasn't going to run my smoke generator mod, if you don't have that, because it's just one of the, you unlock them in super containers. I think you can buy them in the arsenal now, so we'll have a look at that. I would run the aiming mod, because the other ones, you don't want to lose any reload time with the main battery mod. Yeah, your guns might turn faster, but now you've got a 5-second reload on the guns, and the 120mm guns aren't going to be able to fire fast enough or hit hard enough that warrants that at all. So I would be running the aiming systems modification 1. The AA guns, nothing to write home about, so I wouldn't even bother. Steering gears, because unfortunately you can't run the propulsion mod, so steering gears mod is what you want to run. You're not going to get too many fires in a destroyer. If someone's firing HE at you, it's a cruiser or a battleship, it's just going to wreck you, so it's probably not going to set you on fire, it's just going to destroy you totally. So steering gears there, gets the rudder shift time down. It's pretty handy. And if you don't have the money for it, don't feel like you need to run either of those, because the rudder shift time is already relatively good. And then the concealment systems modification 1. To get the ship down to that 5.5 kilometer detection that you will need to run, or 6.1 if you don't have the captain skill, to be competitive at tier 10. So the exterior, you've got your camos, and I just run this one at the moment is just the Type 5, which you can pick up in containers every day. It does the same thing as all the rest, except for the fact that it doesn't give you, perks and stuff like that. So it brings them down. So negative 3% detectability by range. That's why if you run the camo with the captain skill, you can bring that down to 5.5. If you don't run the camo, you'll run it at 5.7. Signals. So good signals for this ship is always Juliet Charlie, which is a detonation flag. If you don't have them, don't worry. As I said, my build on this destroyer has the magazine mod, which I've put in, which is also extremely helpful. You could run torpedoes, chance of flooding, your fire flags, speed flag, definitely a speed flag, and then possibly the reload time consumables. So you run that with jack of all trades, and you get your smokes up relatively quickly, and your hydros back quick as well. And then your flags, you run whatever choice of flags you want to run, guys. That's your flag. It doesn't really do anything. It's no benefit to the ship at all. So that is my review, or I guess my review or my opinion on the Lightning. Top tier, very strong ship. Not the strongest in tier 8, but definitely not the weakest. The thing that makes this thing strong is her concealment. Concealment means that she can outspot anything in her tier, including the Shiratsu, and definitely the Akazuki, who you will struggle against if you get caught out with the Akazuki in a gunfight. In tier 10, if you face tier 9 and 10 all the time, she's not the greatest ship at all. So that's why I would recommend running the concealment build, so you can compete and beat out tier 10 destroyers. As you saw in the gameplay, we used the concealment to keep that gearing spotted, and I've had that happen to me actually in the Lightning. Someone was in the Lightning, I was in the Yu-Yang, and they spotted me, and I couldn't do anything about it, so I just got out of there. I realised it had to be the Lightning, and I went to another cap and waited till the radar cruiser dealt with the Lightning. So this ship's greatest strength is her concealment. So try to use that to be able to dominate your opponent. If you haven't got a 10-point captain or a 13-point captain, why you don't have a 10-point captain at tier 8, I wouldn't know, because my recommendation would be that you don't leave tier 4 without a 10-point captain for any new players. And the reason is that Concealment Expert gives you such a competitive advantage going from tier 5 to tier 10, especially with the +2, -2 matchmaking. So yeah, that's my recommendation. How you choose to play the game, though, is how you choose to play the game. As long as you enjoy the game, that's all that matters. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.